start with what piques a lot of interest out there, because it could potentially affect your back pocket, would be the betting lines. So we've got Ohio State, of course, against Nebraska in week 1, 21.5. Sounds pretty fair to me, Kevin, in regards to what you would expect from these two teams.
Yeah, I think it was actually even a little lower than I was expecting. I had 24.5 as kind of my thought. Just, let's just take it a little bit beyond 3 scores. We'll see as we get a little bit closer where the lines are once, generally Vegas Insider's the first one that has them week of, and then covers.com and some of the others. But I think the line seems fair, and it'll be interesting. You have Ohio State and Nebraska, 2 teams that stood up in the face of Corona Bros to come together and fight for the season to start. And now Ohio State looks like they're going to deliver, a handy little beating to their foes from the Big Ten West.
What are we calling this, Kevin? Did you make this up?
Did I make what up?
Corona
Bros. No, I can't take credit for that.
Okay.
That's been on social. I just have been a big supporter of that term, because there has seemed to be a few people out there that seem to be Team Chaos, rooting for sports to be diminished. And I'm going to hashtag stick to sports, at least for the moment, unless you guys get me worked up.
Well, I think it's apt based on the fight that the Buckeyes and the Huskers put up, both from the player level, the coach level, and of course the parents joining in and supporting everyone. And we're very familiar with the Ohio State situation. So the Buckeyes and the Huskers, and the way Steve Ohio State has thrown around the Big Red for the most part. Of course, there was a close affair 2 years ago in Columbus, 36-31, but it's been all Ohio State pretty much since Nebraska joined the Big Ten, other than that initial Joe Bosserman filling in for an injured Braxton Miller in 2011 with a 21-point lead. And I know I went there.
Yeah, avert your eyes. Ohio State blew a 21-point lead in the third quarter in that game. And, it was really Joe Bosserman on one side replacing Braxton Miller, and then Rex Burkhead on the other. And Taylor Martinez, who was the quarterback, I think then, moved it right down the field and scored several times without any kind of resistance from Ohio State's porous defense that year. Buckeyes were 6-6 that season. 6-6.
Ended up 6-7 when they lost to Florida.
6-7. Yeah, I blotted all that out of my memory. I don't even know if they had 7 losses in the 8 years since then. I'm sure they did, but
just a few more.
Yeah, not many more. So 7 losses in one season kind of says it all. But Ohio State's dominated Nebraska, much as they've dominated much of the Big Ten for the last 8 or 9 years. And Ohio State went out to Nebraska last year. It was 48-7. I think, didn't Jeff Okudah maybe have 2 interceptions early in the game,
including one from his rear end?
Yeah, it was crazy. Nebraska just couldn't get out of its own way, and it was over at halftime basically. And the Buckeyes just kind of coasted home with the victory. When you go on the road, you don't take as many guys with you, so you don't put a lot of the freshmen and those type guys in there. You just kind of ride it out with the second team guys who you took. So, it was quite a blowout. And as you mentioned, Nebraska did give Ohio State a tougher game 2 years ago in Columbus in 2018. And again, here's Nebraska. Scott Frost woefully underperformed his first 2 years. Would love nothing more than to get 2020 off to a great start. And, maybe clip Ohio State in the opener somehow, some way. We've seen some upsets across college football already this season, but it would be, when LSU lost, it was because it was an entirely different team of LSU players who took the field than what we saw in the championship last year with Joe Burrow. Justin Fields is back for Ohio State, so there's no reason to believe that Ohio State's offense isn't going to pick right up where it left off. And the big question's on defense. Can they smother people like they did last year instead of winning by 35? Maybe they win some of these games by 21, but make no mistake, they're going to win these games.
Yeah, so following that big red comeback in Lincoln in the first meeting from 27-6 down, we had a wild affair in Columbus the next year from an Ohio State defensive squad that typically had a lot of lapses in that season. Like 63-38 comes to mind for that score.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had a few years off, I believe, and then maybe the next time they got together was that complete annihilation in Columbus, where Nebraska came in with a very smoke and mirrors 7-0, top 10 ranking, 62-3 in that one. And it's pretty much been that type of affair for the 3 or 4 times they played ever since.
They have their tradition where they have their red balloons and they release them on the first score, and it was the year after 62-3 or whatever, where it was a similar whacking that happened, and people were just letting their balloons go eventually. I think when they got a first down, they finally let their balloons go because it was just an absolute beat down in that game. Ohio State went 8 quarters, went 8 quarters without like allowing a touchdown or something. I mean, Ohio State went a prolonged period of time without having to punt in this series. Ohio State certainly has had Nebraska's number for stretches. Once we get past that Boserman game and the famous meme of the passing chart with throws going outside of the stadium into the seating sections and whatnot. But that game always will be a memory for me because I came up with this. Steve and I travel together a lot to road games. It's just always good to have a buddy and be able to, have somebody to have a occasional beer with now and then. And I came up with this great idea. We're going to fly into Omaha and we're going to fly out of Kansas City. We're going to get a one-way rental. We're not going to get a hotel. It's going to be perfect. We'll get down to Kansas City. We'll hit the casino for a couple hours, have a few laughs. It's going to be great. Well, this was the year of all the flooding out there and all the bridges were out. And we could not get to Kansas City to save our lives. And it also happened to be the same weekend as the Kansas race weekend for NASCAR. So there were no hotels down there either. We're driving down a 2-lane road. Steve is singing Miley Cyrus songs at the top of his voice to keep from falling asleep. I was hallucinating. I was so tired. So it made a bad weekend in terms of the football that we saw on the field, even worse with one of the worst trips on the road that we've had in at least in 15 years.
And that's got to be some easy driving if you're wide awake. But if you're about to pass out, all that just straight line driving was seeing the same cornfields for a lot of it, I got to think, because I've driven that stretch going up to the College World Series a few times, and that was pretty rough.
Yeah, it was 2-lane roads in the middle of the night. There was like a full moon, and that was about it. And
no GPS.
No GPS. Finally get to Kansas City, and we had to stay awake for an hour or two waiting for the plane for the airport to open to go check in for the plane. So yeah, it was no bueno.
We'll never do that one again.
Never again.
We'll just get a hotel.
My apologies go out to Ohio State fans who are checking out my set decor behind me. I try to set up the helmets so that they look appropriate to the particular show that we're doing, and I don't know how the shot is going to box down once we get the other guests on here. So Nate the Great, don't be late. We know you're a big Michigan fan. You were the first on here with Kasami 47 Crip. I don't know who you root for, but obviously you're disgusted by Ohio State. So the first 2 people in our chat, definitely Ohio State critics and detractors. So I left that up there for you for just a few seconds, and then we'll have to make amends. There we go. And speaking of Ohio State, Nebraska, yeah, those last couple outings were those types that were pretty much the halftime score was the final score because Ohio State had the 48 or 50 on the board at halftime and just kind of cruised home and just let it go, or it could have been 80, 90, pick the score kind of deal.